Hello and welcome. This is a demonstration video on Bootstrap Kubernetes the hard way. In this video, we bootstrap our own Kubernetes from scratch. What is Kubernetes? Kubernetes is an open source platform for managing containerized workloads and services that facilitates declarative configuration and automation. So let's move on to the demo. This is an Ubuntu machine having Google Cloud SDK installed. Let's authenticate and select our Google Cloud project. Okay, so we are done with authentication and selection of the Google Cloud project. So now on, we'll go to the bootstrapping and the GKE example. So the flow of this video is that I'll show how the automated Kubernetes by Google works, and then I'll show how the bootstrapped Kubernetes works. From now onwards, all the commands we execute will also work on the Google Cloud Shell. So let's start with the automated Kubernetes, the Kubernetes provided by Google Cloud. So the command is gcloud container clusters create k0. I'm naming the cluster as k0 zone US West 1C. Let's see. So let's wait for the command. Yes, now you can see that the cluster is being formed. It takes a while to form this cluster, around 3 to 5 minutes. Okay guys, so you can see the cluster is formed. Over here you can see that the master IP is this, then the machine type is E2 medium. This is the GCP machine type. There are 3 number of nodes and the status is running. Now let's get started. kubectl create deployment. We need to name this deployment nginx image as nginx 1.10.0 say. Okay, so you can see that this deployment is created. We can check for the pods, kubectl get pods. The nginx pods have a label of app is equal to nginx. Let's see if it works. Okay, nice. We can see that there's one pod running over here, and this pod has an image of nginx. Let's expose this application, as this is just running inside the cluster. kubectl expose deployment nginx, give the port number, and we give the type as load balancer. Great. kubectl get services. So you will see that a load balancer service is created and the external IP is still pending. Let's wait for a while. Okay, so now we have an external IP. Let's copy this IP and put it in our browser. Great, so you'll see that we have the nginx default page over here. So this application is running on the Kubernetes cluster provided by Google Kubernetes engine. So now let's move on to the Bootstrap Kubernetes part. So what I'll do is I'll delete this cluster. So the command is container clusters delete K8. We again need to give the zone west 1 C. Yes. Okay guys, so the cluster is deleted. Now let's go to the Bootstrap Kubernetes part. So there is a script created, fullscript.sh. So let's try to see the contents of this. You'll see that there are some things going on. There are some prerequisite commands, the client tools are installing, we are provisioning the compute resources, and so on. So let's run the script first and then we'll check the log outputs. So what we'll do is we'll run the full script and you can see that these commands are getting executed. Prerequisites is happening right now. Then installing the client tools. There are many steps to the bootstrapping process and this script takes a little more than what Google Kubernetes engine takes. So it will take around 6 to 8 minutes to run this entire script. Okay, so the full script has executed and our Kubernetes has bootstrapped. So now let's deploy the Nginx application over here. So again, I'll save some time by copy pasting the commands. This is the same command we used to create a deployment. Now let's expose it. So note that here we are creating a node port service before we were creating a load balancer service. So for the Bootstrap Kubernetes we don't have that facility, as the load balancer service is integrated with the cloud provider. Okay, so we are setting the node port environment variable. We are creating the firewall so that we can expose our Nginx application. So this is the manual procedure happening over here, but we get the same results at the end. Let's set the external IP of worker node 0 and let's try a curl. Okay, so we are getting the curl output. Let's do one thing. Let's echo the outputs for these. Okay, and let's check the node port as well. Okay, great. So now let's copy the IP address and by the way, you can see our previous deployment. Since we deleted our Kubernetes cluster, this should no longer be reachable. So yeah, you won't be able to reach this. But now we have our new Kubernetes cluster. So this is the IP and this is the port, the node port service we are using. Okay, great. So we have our Nginx application deployed over here. Let's go back. So this is how we bootstrapped our own Kubernetes. You can see the different output we are getting over here. The outputs are according to the commands we are executing in the full script. The green headers are the main headers over here, and the Yellow headers are the subsections under that. So on a very high level, you can consider that VPC is forming, then subnet is being created, then we create the nodes inside that, the controller nodes, the worker nodes. Then you create the TLS certificates, then you create the Kubernetes configuration files, you download the different binaries for Kubernetes, you can check over here, different binaries are getting installed. These are different components in Kubernetes. Kubelet and kubeproxy are on the worker nodes. kubectl is the interface which we used, the command you were using, and many other things. And yeah, so eventually you're downloading the binaries, then you're creating the service files for them, then you're running those services. Ultimately, all this makes your Kubernetes cluster. Towards the end, you can also see that we have configured DNS for our services, deploying the DNS cluster add-on. So yeah, all these different parts happen behind the scene when we use the Google Kubernetes engine. This project was based on bootstrapping each and every part of our project from scratch. Thank you.